I feel like in my life, I've had a lot of different phases where I'm like really inspired by something. So for a very long time, I had a very, very, very strong draw to railroad tracks, especially if they were like unused railroad tracks. Kids do not go onto railroad tracks. We would, where I lived at one point, there was an old railroad track and then the one that was currently being used. And I would go on the old one and I would just walk it for hours. And it was so, there was something nostalgic. And because I was like a teenager, I was like depressed all the time. So it was like brooding, but it was like a really, there was something outside of myself that was going on and something that pushed me along. The railroad tracks was a way for me to feel what I feel now when I write. And when I'm like doing creative things, that was a feeling that I had when I was on railroad tracks. But then I've always been very, very attracted to woods and going to the woods. And they talk about what is this, there's a lot of symbolism in the woods and like within our evolution of us climbing down from trees or coming out of caves or whatever it is. And the woods was always a dangerous place, but a necessary place to go. And it's like almost an honorable journey to go.
Like a rite of passage.
Yes, 100%. And think about like we even talked
Campbell
about.
talks about that too.
Yes, exactly. And so like those kinds of things are written into our DNA and written into our subconscious. So we're getting Carl Jung here, but it's like in our subconscious and it's like coming out in a very nostalgic way where we're like, this feels right. And I think like for me, every time I go into the woods, it's like that, unless there's something crazy, chaotic going on, like other people, like when I'm alone in the woods.
Why are all these birds eating people?
No, I mean like
this
other
is not
people.
Magical.
No, that would be, like, but it definitely is different. But I feel like going into the woods for me is like really, really magical already. And the less people and the less developed it is, almost the better.
Sure.
When I lived in Florida, I would go on this trail almost every single day, and I would run it, and then I would like, it was the best thing ever. And I would run and I would see alligators all the time. I would run and I would see little armadillos running with me, and then I would see crazy snakes, and it was just like it freaked me out almost every single time, but it was awesome. It was just such a beautiful experience, and I would get so inspired to write and to push my creativity in the jobs that I was working on. And so the woods are definitely, that's a staple for me. Huge staple for me.
Despite my fear that the 12 people who listen to this particular podcast at this moment tell their 100 friends and then suddenly they mob this forest. Where was that?
So so I lived in Tallahassee, Florida for years, a couple of like 4 years. And I went to the Lafayette Heritage Trail, and it was so inspiring that I wrote a series of very short stories of kids going onto the trail and like finding fairies and finding a fairy tree that was full of fairies. And there were like all these other magical creatures that lived in this place, but it was always hidden from them. And the first one is really fun. Actually, I might have you read it. This may be one of the submissions that we have you read, Daniel. But the first one was the brother and sister go in and they find a fairy and they help a fairy from getting harmed. And she's like, well, now you saved me, I have to repay you. As part of our culture, I have to repay you with something. And they're like, well, what do you have? And she's like, well, I have three adventure options, and it's this one, this one, or this one. And in each adventure option, it's like they get a magical totem. And so they chose one, and they go and they do this magical thing, and it all had to do with the things on the trail that I would run. And it was just such a blast, like coming up with them and then writing them down. And they're all very short, but they're very fun.
I love that.
But it was definitely a really fun thing to be inspired by. And it was because I was literally in the woods, just running into the woods. Hi, if you enjoyed that, then maybe you should watch this. Or maybe it's on this side. I don't know. I don't know how this works.